part two. The first jack I installed was on the passenger side, on the battery box is going to be. This is the driver's side, so the seat, the steering wheel is just above my head. Just prepping the surface. Give you a better idea how I did my layout coming up here. So the box to the right is the computer, the motherboard. And behind on the rails, in behind, are brake lines, fuel lines, main wiring harness. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on the other side of this frame, the blind side. I got my block of wood because that's the space I'm going to need between in there when I go to insulate, because all of this will have a basement and be insulated when I'm done. And where I'm actually, the other side is going to be a battery box, and this side will be where all my power inverters, solar control systems will all be on this side. Everything will be accessed from inside, so I won't have any outdoor access panels. I'm making everything for 40 below. You don't ever want to be outside looking at stuff and fixing things. Be out in the weather. So I get my clamps in the right place, get my elevation. The full stroke of the cylinders is 19 inches. So I'm trying to find the sweet spot. And hopefully, no matter where I park, or the majority of places I park, I won't have to put blocks underneath or stuff. I'm building this thing with the motorhome I'm building. In mind is I'm moving every day, so I want practical jacks. I want to use them all the time, at least 2 or 3 times a day. I don't want to have to fuss around with them. I know I've seen people park, especially in the around here, where they'll park permanently, pretty much permanently in the rest stops or wherever. There's just lots of people doing it now, and I just don't understand how they could stay parked in the same place for months on end and not have it leveled. It's mind-boggling to me. It reminds me of the old episodes of Batman or Robin where they were fighting, and anytime they're in a room, everything's crooked. And I'm just thinking, it's one of my first things I think of wherever I park is I want to be level, and hopefully I can find spots where I don't have to get out and block my tires or whatever. But even if it's for one night, I'm parking flat. It just annoys the heck out of me. Rolling over to one side of the bed, or you go to cook something and everything's on one side of the pan, or just walking around. I don't understand how people can stay parked in their RVs for weeks or months in one place and not bother to make it level. It ain't for me for sure. So you notice I had the drill, and what I did is it's a 7/16 bit on the drill, so I know I'm going to be dead on center when I line up my drill, my mag drill. And right here's a little bit of a disadvantage with the handle. You'll see in a minute. It's a little bulkier, compromise. And I have to worry about where the handle is just going to miss that box. And I'm also going in a pattern where I'm working away from where I've drilled. So I'll put the furthest holes first, so that when I go to do my next hole, I'm not putting my mag drill on the grease, on the cutting fluids, whatever's on the frame. I don't want to give the drill any excuse to go for a ride, take me for a ride. This one's pretty safe though. It shuts off the minute you lose your magnetic drill grip. You can see the handle, how close it is to the black box, but I managed to line up exactly where I wanted it and still got that handle into place. There's 3 settings on the handle. There's off, and then there's, I think it's like 30%, so you can actually have it stick on there and still move it around, and then 100% in the 3rd position. I just keep thinking of how much work this would be without that drill. Another advantage of this is I've got all of that stuff on all that mechanical connections, electrical connections on the back side of the frame. And if you're drilling with a normal drill, you're going to punch through, and chances are you're going to nick something, drill into something you didn't want to drill into, and have an oil leak or brake line leak, fuel leak, drill through wires. So this is, the minute you break through with this, you have enough control that you don't go any further than you want. You see again, I run into the handle hitting that black box. That really takes away a lot of my magnetic surface. So when I start drilling, you'll see the light flashing, telling me that I don't have a 100% grip. I looked at this drill for I think 4 years. It sat on the shelf. I don't know if it's the same one, but it was sitting at KMS Tools, and every time I went in there, it's kind of, you look at it and drool over it and try and justify a reason to buy it. So having to drill through a hard automotive frame seemed like a good argument for me. This is kind of like having your first Tonka truck. It's just giddy as a kid. I had a lot of Tonka trucks when I was a kid, and my mom was, she's a germaphobe, clean freak, so I wasn't allowed to take my Tonka trucks outside, and so, you know, that sucked. What's the point of having all of these toys? Anyway, so we had this big picture window in our back of our house that looked out into the yard, and then my Uncle Phil, he owned a sand pit. And so one day my dad had him drop like 2 big loads of sand in the backyard, like 20 feet from the picture window. And of course, like, I'm like maybe 6 years old, and I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? It's like, you know, looking through the window in the candy store. And like, my mom's adamant, no, you can't take your Tonka trucks outside and go play in that big pile of sand out there. No. So anyway, one day she was gone, and I took all my trucks, Tonka trucks, outside and made sure I got everything out there and got them all buried in the sand pit. And then she got home and she had her little hissy fit, and basically, that's it. You're never taking your trucks in the house again. And I'm like, yeah, I agree to those terms. Those are good terms. My trucks never went in the house again. So I don't know how many years my dad didn't bother finishing the backyard, probably a couple of years before he put sod down, and I basically spread that whole thing around with my Tonka trucks, and I was in heaven. And that's kind of like what it's having a drill like this is. So I got all my holes drilled on one side there and get rid of the grease. I don't have a lot of room to work. Now I'd rather not have my drill go where I had my grease and oils, and that's the way it is. So just gotta work with what you gotta work with. Yeah, I think this was an 8-hour day doing this part of the installation. Getting the hang of it now. Nice chips coming off. Making sure I'm not going to go through something I'm going to regret. This is a fine, F-E-I-N, European made. I don't know if fines from Germany or Sweden or wherever, but they make good stuff. Not getting a good grip, so I'll take some more of that rust off. There you can see the light flashing pretty good there. Always learning thing about drilling. I've been using my drill doctor for the first time. That's kind of you learn a lot playing with that thing. It works pretty good once you figure it out. And I went to a lot of websites. Haas, I think they're called. A big machine shop. They make all kinds of stuff. So the thing that dulls your bit the most, and they're also dealing with milling machines and everything's robotic, automated systems. But what they found is one of the things that dulls your blade the most is going in and out like I'm doing there. So I think it's probably unless you're drilling, well, even depends how deep the hole is, but probably on this 3/8 stuff I should just go through. But as you're about to punch through the other side, you can normally feel that. You should slow down or less pressure to reduce the heat, because as the metal gets thinner, there is a surge of heat on the metal that's left, and apparently that's what dulls your bit the most, is that last couple of millimeters. So it's something to keep in mind. I think it would take a while to actually get good at pulling that off every time. But certainly just blowing through is always rough on the wrists. Most of the time the hand drill is going to beat you up or you'll break the drill. And like I say, in this situation, I'd be going into a whole bunch of stuff I'd prefer not to. You saw it break away there for a second. And we're through. I think that was the last hole. Look at that. That's a nice fit. Thing to think about when you're assembling things, get all the holes, all the bolts and all the holes before you tighten anything down. You can put a nut on one just so it doesn't fall on you, but get all the bolts in the holes before you tighten anything. And I would even say, in most cases, snug them up until you feel that you're in place, and then start tightening them. In this case, it doesn't matter which ones I tighten first, but when you're talking flanges, things going around in circles, you always want to jump back and forth, bolts opposing each other, to stretch things out, not be left with a deformity, bump, or a improperly seated deal. I think I've been doing this for so long, I don't even know what else people need to know. But I could go into more detailed videos in the future, so I'll be at this doing this for the next few years. This is the first one I'm building, and it's taken forever. Everything's going wrong. I did not want to have to do a lot of the things I'm going to be doing. I'm supposed to be living in there already by now, but that didn't happen. So there we go. Second jack is in.